Welcome to Business Innovators Radio, featuring industry influencers and trendsetters sharing proven strategies to help you build a better life right now.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Business Innovators Radio. I'm your host, Donna Gunter. Today we have with us Joel Helfer, known as the 10-Minute Radio Producer and #1 profit advisor for podcast radio show host and guest. His first book, Get Published and Grow Your Business, became an Amazon #1 national bestseller in 3 categories and a bestseller in Germany. He's written numerous articles for many trade publications, most recently Small Business Edge magazine, Small Business Trendsetters, and has been quoted in feature articles in over 150 digital websites, including ABC, NBC, Fox, CBS, the Miami Herald, the Boston Globe, the Fort Worth Star-Telegram, and the LA Times. He's enjoyed a 40-year career in the commercial glass and glazing industry in Chicago and was a partner in 5 multi-million-dollar glass and glazing, manufacturing, and distribution businesses. He's married to Eve B. Helfer and has 3 grown children, Zachary, who's an architect, Jeffrey, who's a sports coach, and Rachel, an elementary school teacher. Joel is here today to talk about why talk show hosts are leaving massive amounts of money on the table with their shows. Welcome to the show, Joel. I'm so excited to have you here.
Hi, Donna. That was a very nice introduction. I'm blushing a little bit.
Well,
Thank
Joel,
you very much. I'm glad to be here.
You're quite welcome. I always like to start my show, and I really am interested in hearing this piece because you went from the glass and construction industry to radio. I'm sure that was a very interesting journey. Can you tell us a little bit about how you made that journey?
I think the right phrase is dumb luck. Because what happened is we spent our whole life in Chicago. It was a 3-generation, multi-faceted family business. And, several years ago, we retired, and I needed something to do. And I really didn't know what to do, so I decided to buy a computer because I fell into the myth that you just turn the computer on, you turn it on, and money just comes flying out of the screen. You know, and everybody has that myth, and the farthest thing from the truth. But what happened was I joined a group of people who were working on a principle called authority marketing, where you get attention, authority, credibility, and you use different products and resources on the internet to stand out from the crowd. That's the latest rage, but actually it's a principle that we used in our glass business for 40 years and never knew that it had any jargon or principles or philosophies attached to it. So when I saw this, I jumped right at it because I said, I know how to do this. And then one of the actual members of this group actually had a radio show, and he heard me talking, being interviewed about something, and he read some of my articles, and he calls me up one day and he says, do you know how to sell on the telephone? And I said, sure. I said, my whole career was based on selling on the telephone, because in those days there wasn't even a fax machine, and if you wanted to do business, you either had to see someone in person or go to a telephone booth with a pocket full of change, which is a whole different world. So I became his radio producer, and he had a real live radio show on 560 AM, The Answer in Arlington Heights, Illinois, which used to be called WIND, and I used to round up guests for his show. And he had a pay-for-play show where he would charge the guest for a 5-minute promotional interview, and it was kind of hard to sell. So what we did is that we realized what was possible and what wasn't possible and how to treat guests in relation to using radio as a very nice marketing tool. That's how it all started.
That's pretty amazing that you made that transition from the glass industry to radio just by using something that you never knew had a name. It's amazing how many of us kind of have that dumb luck and fall into something that's ideally suited for us.
You're right. And the nice thing about it is even though it was a completely different medium, and it was a completely different product suite. Getting along with people is getting along with people, and building relationships, whether in person or on the phone, is the same no matter what you're doing, and that's why it worked for me, and that's why it's working for me now.
Well, Joel, I want to get to the meat of this, and I know we probably have listeners who are desperate to hear this information. How do you help radio and podcast talk show hosts?
Well, when I learned working on the radio in Arlington Heights was that, number one, a lot of people wanted to be on the radio. It was really sexy to get interviewed on the radio, and it's still that way today. So they jumped at the chance when they were offered, but the majority of them assumed and believed that the radio interview was free, that there was no charge, and all the costs and expenses of the program were either paid for by somebody in the sky or some advertiser or some sponsor. And what happened is that we were charging for the interview, so there was a lot of hoops to jump through and a lot of obstacles to jump through. But I came to the conclusion of doing it another way. So we offered the interviews for free. We built up a real good relationship with the guests by getting them prepped for the show. That's where the name 10-minute radio producer comes from, because in a lot of cases they only had 10 minutes to get them ready to be on the air, and they knew nothing about it. So we helped them in all different ways to make them, if nothing else, comfortable and not nervous.
Right.
And then they were on the air with the talk show host for 5 minutes, and he was a wonderful interviewer. They had a great experience, and they built up a relationship with the talk show host and me, and they were really happy. They trusted us because we delivered on our promises. And then after the show was over, sometimes it was done on the phone like this one, or sometimes it was done live in the studio, which is a lot of fun. And we would furnish them about a week later with an MP3 recording, and that was the end of it. And I was thinking about it, and I said to my talk show host, I said, this is too good of an opportunity. We should do something with those MP3 recordings. And for sure, the show guest should do something with them, because it's a digital asset that's now recorded that can be played over and over and over again. And if it's played in front of the right people, it will attract attention, spread their message far and wide, give them more free publicity, some phone calls, and maybe even get new clients and new sales. And that's what I mean about talk show hosts leaving money on the table, because what they have to do has to do with an email where there's a PS. And my particular formula is when you send them the MP3 recording of the show, you congratulate them and say, here's your MP3 recording. It's a nice digital marketing tool. You can use it to make money, and you sign your name. And then you put on the bottom PS, and you say, by the way, what are you going to do with this recording? And then that's the end of the email. Well, within 15 minutes, a half an hour, maybe the next day, we either got phone calls or emails back, what do you suggest? And now you've got a sweet spot, because they liked us, they trusted us, and they pretty much accepted anything we told them. And we gave them very good low-end PR and marketing, and they were able to get all the things that I described, the attention, the publicity, the spread their message, more interviews. We used the MP3 recordings to help them get speaking engagements. It went on and on and on, and we made money. And that's what I mean by talk show hosts and podcast show hosts leaving money on the table, because I would say that unless I describe this to people, nobody even knows to even think about asking for opportunities to repurpose an interview after the show is over. We didn't invent the process, but in our little world, we invented it. And now I started a company, and the company is called Quoted Authority Media, where we basically labeled ourselves as profit advisors, which is nothing more than a skill we've developed over years to help both talk show and podcast show hosts monetize their businesses and monetize their shows so they can keep them going.
Yeah, I know that's a really important aspect of the whole podcasting radio talk show host dilemma, is that you feel like you work and work and work and don't really see or may not see much result from that, even if you're trying to just get known and out there so people come to you and purchase whatever services you might be selling. Typically people are having to go after advertisers or beg for donations, and this sounds very intriguing in terms of really being able to capitalize on a key marketing asset to help the guests get more publicity, help the host make money. I mean, my gosh, it's a win-win all the way around.
Yeah, what's fun about it is that we've devised a formula which is simple, easy, it's lucrative, and it's repeatable. And I call it my seller formula it's kind of an abbreviated name for the word seller, but it's a seller formula where the talk show host just leverages the relationship that he builds up with his guest during and before the interview. And then when it's all over, most of the guests are so happy with the whole thing that they call up and compliment us. I got this all the time from guests. They said, gee, and it was only a 5-minute interview, but now the trend is more for a half an hour or an hour interview. So you can imagine what kind of a digital asset can be created and then repurposed. And I come up with about, over the last couple of years, like 15 to 25 ways where you can repurpose these MP3 recording and take a digital asset and turn it into a marketing powerhouse. And then the nice thing about it is by recruiting talk show hosts and podcast show hosts as strategic partners, I don't want to even call them salesmen, as strategic partners, when they offer these services to their guests, there's very little selling resistance. They buy them, and then all the talk show host or the podcast show host has to do is give us their name and information, although we even have that automatically, and then all they do is wait for us to fulfill it and collect a check. Not bad.
Not bad at all. Well, Joel, as you were talking, something occurred to me. You know, I see different forms of media dying out, like the printed magazine is going away and becoming online magazines. Printed newspapers are closing all around the country or being bought up by major media moguls. How about podcasting and radio shows? Is radio headed the way of current newspapers and magazines? And what about podcasts? I mean, what are the recent trends in on-air broadcasting? Is there a future for that? And so is there a future then for this whole profit strategy?
What's happening is that radio is still as strong as ever, but the increase in podcasting is exponential. Like, I think iTunes started out 6, 7, 8 years ago, maybe 10 years ago, and with Apple, and now the last statistic I heard was in the United States there were 250,000 podcast shows on the 6 major podcast platforms. That's a lot of people. And I also talked to a man who runs Talkers magazine, the executive director, and they represent the large guys like Howard Stern, Rush Limbaugh, Sean Hannity, David Ramsey, and those type of shows will always be there, but even they are now starting their own podcasts, and the reason even the large talk show hosts are starting their own podcasts is because radio, when the interview is complete, it's gone. sometimes they make a recording of it and sometimes they don't. But with podcasting, since the majority of it's all recorded and archived, and there's all these platforms like iTunes, SoundCloud, Streaker, Stitcher, TuneIn, and et cetera, every single time you do a podcast, the show is recorded, and it's there almost for life. Plus, you can easily repurpose the recording by putting it on social media or turning it into a YouTube video and so on and so forth. So the future, as a matter of fact, I was told by some really high-level people that the future major radio broadcasters are going to come from podcasting.
Wow, that's pretty amazing. But I guess that's not unexpected, because what I heard around the car industry was that by this year, next year, a bulk of the new cars are being pre-built with podcasting software in their radio system. So if it's going into cars, that must mean that there's a big market for it.
There's a huge market, and what happens is when people find a particular show, because most of the podcasts are like directed very specifically on everything from cooking to gardening to weight loss, you name it. They have a podcast show for building your own house, taking a vacation, retiring. It goes on and on and on. And most people who start listening to a podcast, if they're intrigued by it, if it's a well-run show, and if the host has some entertaining guests and kind of funny, they'll go back and listen to all the episodes.
Right.
And that's not, and it's just like old-time radio. So, and what's happening now is that the majority of young people in the demographic age from like 18 to 25 or 30 don't even own a radio. So all of their information is coming digitally, either through the computer or through their Android or iPhones. So that's why podcasting is taking off, because you can you can download and listen to podcasting. They stick a set of headphones into a telephone, and away you go. You can't do that with radio.
Exactly. Well, Joel, now that we know that radio shows and podcasting isn't going away anytime soon, let's go back and talk a little bit about what it takes to be a show host. What are 3 important ideas or concepts that show hosts need to think about as they're publishing their show?
Well, one of the most important things they need to think about is why they started the show. And it sounds kind of crazy that someone would start a show without having a reason or a goal, but that's the case. So they need to have a clear-cut reason of why they want to start the show. And once they have that, then they have to work backwards. All right, here's my reason or the outcome I'm looking for, whether it's attention, publicity, new customers, fun, whatever. They start backwards, and then they start building out the show backwards, and that enables them to attract the right guests. And that's the other thing they have to think about, is what type of guests do they want. And then the third thing is, what type of an audience are they interested in attracting? Because you can get very targeted. Like, for example, since we're into helping people make money with their on-air shows, whether it's a radio host or a podcaster, if I was doing a show, I would target it strictly to talk show hosts. And that's how I actually find my customers, the same way digitally on LinkedIn. I'm only looking for people in a specific area. And a lot of hosts really never think about simple things like that. They say, well, I'll just start a podcast and I'll try to build up my audience. And whoever wants to be on the show, I'll put them on the show and we'll just wing it. Doesn't work too well.
No, not a great way to run a business, for sure.
But most of them are like that. And what's sad is a lot of people, if they don't have a plan in place, which doesn't even require a lot of money to get started, but they never get enough listeners. Like, it's a shame that so many of these podcasts have 12, 15, 20 people listening to the show. because they don't think it out and they don't just target it, which you can do very easily now with tools on the internet to target your show to a specific demographic. It could even be an age graphic, a demographic, a geographic demographic, whatever, a specific skill, whatever you want. And that's one of the things that we do is we help the host identify the outcome they want. And then by identifying the outcome, they can attract the right guests. And then when they build up the relationship with the guests, we have products and services that fit the outcome of the show, so it's very congruent and everybody's really happy.
Well, Joel, let's talk about the money. We always want to talk about how people are making money, and I know some of these radio show hosts and podcasters may have fallen prey to the same myth that you fell prey to, which was, you buy a computer and suddenly there's tons of money flowing out of your computer. And, you and I know that it's not that easy at all. Talk a little bit about what show hosts are doing to try to make some money or generate some income from their show. And then I want to hear about your formula to help talk show hosts increase revenue.
Well, to be honest with you, the majority of talk show hosts and podcast show hosts are doing nothing. That's the sad part. And the ones that are at the top end and are very successful and do it in the traditional way, and the traditional way is getting either advertising, commercials, sponsors for their website, banners for their website. So that's the way the majority of radio show and podcasters are making money. Some are even their show is interesting enough where they charge a subscription fee to listen to the show. But we have a completely different philosophy. Our philosophy is to basically be a digital PR agency for the talk show guest and offer him all types of product and services that are useful, that are affordable, and that produce results, and we've done this successfully for several years, and then get the talk show host to recommend them. And when the talk show host recommends the products and services that we offer for the talk show guest, the talk show host, it's not an affiliate, it's more a strategic partnership, makes money. And the nice thing about it is it's repeatable because he can get it down to a science and offer it to his guests week after week after week after week. Obviously, some will buy and some won't, but it doesn't take up much of his time, and there's no real investment other than the fact he's got to build his audience and send out a couple of pre-written emails and a video, and that's how we help talk show hosts and guests do it. Now, other people may try to do the same thing, but they're all doing it up front, and they're all trying to get sponsors for their show, or they're trying to get a website with all types of advertising, and they're doing it based on the number of people who either look at their website or listen to their show, all the traditional forms of advertising. Where we do it on the back end, where the basic customer is the show host guest, and the guest can repurpose all of these products and services that we offer based on a simple recording, and it doesn't matter how many people listen to it as long as the right people listen to it. Like, he can put it in front of a list of 50 or 100 people, but if it's the right 50 or 100 people and he gets 3 or 4 customers, and the lifetime value of the customer is anywhere from $5,000 to $25,000 and up, that was a good deal.
Oh, absolutely, and that's really that MP3 that you're giving the guest is really more important than maybe being on the Live at 5 drive show, if they still have those things on traditional, I think they call it terrestrial radio, where it's, if you don't listen at 5 o'clock, well, you're kind of out of luck because there's no replay or no recording of that. So that's a brilliant idea to come in as the digital PR team for the radio show host, and then get them involved by sending out a couple of emails, and then you taking care of the guest and paying the host a commission based on what the guest purchases, I assume. Can you go in a little bit more detail about exactly how you're helping the guest maximize their return on that interview?
Well, we have what we call an authority wheel. And what this is it starts out basically with the recorded interview. And then you take the recorded interview and you basically repurpose it, or another word that may be easier for people here is reinvent it. And you take the recorded interview, you can have it transcribed, and it could become a blog post. It could become an article that you put on eZine or social media. You could take the interview and put a graphic and turn it into a YouTube video so people can listen to it with a graphic that makes it very desirable, but a lot of people like to rather listen to it on YouTube. You can promote it on Facebook. You can promote it on Twitter. You can promote it on Instagram. You can turn the interview into an infographic and put it on Instagram. I did that, and I was amazed at the results I got. And the infographic I had made on Fiverr for $5. It was amazing. And then you can also make a disc of the interview with a nice picture on it. They're fulfillment services that'll make these discs for $1, and that becomes the replacement for your business card. You can actually take the interview as the basis for a short book, put it on Amazon, and get a bestseller designation, which now you've taken an interview and you turn yourself into a best-selling author. And it just goes on and on and on. And all of these are basically just using one specific digital asset over and over and over again in different ways. And it's no different than if you have a basic outfit and you just put different accessories on it, or you have a suit with a different shirt and a tie, and it's a completely different suit.
Right,
but
exactly.
It's the same suit. It's the same suit. And the nice thing about it is that we give the talk show guest enough choices that they have something that they like. And we do it very seamlessly, where the talk show host basically, unless they want to get involved, some do actually, don't have to do anything. You know, all they're responsible for is making sure we get a nice, clear recording, and if they have a biographical sketch of the guest, that's helpful, and if they have a headshot, that's helpful. And other than that, the host doesn't really have to do anything, and for that matter, neither does the guest, because this is a completely done-for-you service, and the only thing we would require from the guest is maybe a short phone call or two if we need a question or something answered, right, or something specific. So this is what you call a win-win situation, where most guests don't pay for the interview. They get this wonderful asset for free. Then they get a choice, like going into a restaurant where you can order a bowl of soup or the whole meal, including a dessert. And the talk show host gets a commission just for the referral. And everybody is very happy because we're extremely service-oriented, and we run this like a real business, and we have a team of people behind us who are very expert at all the different technical parts and pieces that we need to make this work.
Oh, absolutely. Well, Joel, let's help the listeners connect the dots here a little bit. So when you're doing all this repurposing and being kind of the PR firm for the guests, now they're not directly selling anything and making any money. I'm assuming that you're helping them or training them how to get out in front of maybe their appropriate target market, so their target market can pick up on whatever way this interview has been repurposed and then want to buy services or products from this guest. Is that how that all works?
It does, because what we do is in addition to a couple of videos we have where we explain how this all works and how these different, let's say, ways of repurposing the recorded interview work, we actually jump on the phone with each specific show guest and give them as little or as much time as they need to discuss their particular situation, what their goals are, what their outcomes are. Some guests want to use it to promote a book. Some guests are looking for more speaking opportunities. Some guests just want to sell products and services offline. They have nothing to do at all with the internet. Some guests are looking to further their career. Sometimes the guests also run their own podcast, and they're on an interview just to get more awareness and publicity to build their own show. So they work on both sides. They work on both sides of the mic.
Right.
You know, so there's literally an unlimited number of ways that this interview can be used depending on the specific needs and requirements of the show guests. And what we do is we make them feel really comfortable. There's a lot of hands-on at the beginning to make sure that whatever we do for them from a public relations or standpoint that they're happy with, because today the best way to get your services and product out is through what is called a third-party endorsement. And a third-party endorsement is being interviewed on the radio, being a best-selling author on Amazon, getting a speaking engagement, getting a write-up in a local newspaper or magazine. That's so much better than advertising. It's not even funny. And that's what we help people do. And it's a lot of fun. It really is a lot of fun. And most people don't even think about it. And we do it in a non-toxic way. We don't twist anybody's arm. All we do is have the talk show host build up a relationship with them, give them the MP3 recording. We ask them our famous question, what are you going to do with it? And some people are sharp. Some people know exactly what to do with it. And those people are even more fun to work with. Or some people don't want to do anything, which is fine. And the people who need suggestions, we have a complete program all set up, all ready to go, and it's all done for them, and all we have to do is just customize it. It's like going into a bakery and ordering a birthday cake. And all they have to do is, whose birthday is it, what type of frosting, and what name you want to put on the cake, and come back in 3 days and pick it up.
Well, Joel, it sounds like you have so many suggestions. If we're using the bakery analogy, it would be going in and not being able to decide between the pecan rolls, the lemon scones, the orange bars, having way too many awesome things to pick from, and, not a big enough stomach to hold them all.
Well, what we do is we offer a package, Donna, and we offer a starter package of 3 or 4 or 5 things that we feel is beneficial. And then once they get that done, if that's enough for them, everybody's happy. And if they want more, we continue on. And it's strictly up to the talk show host in terms of the outcome, the service they're getting, their budget, and we can make it very affordable. And then there are the occasional people that want the top line VIP service right from the beginning. We have that too. And this is fun, but we focus on just one thing, is it helping talk show hosts make money. And by helping the talk show hosts make money, the guest benefits, and a lot of other people do too.
Well, Joel, it sounds like you've come up with an incredible concept there with your team at Quoted Authority Media. What's been the feedback on what the talk show hosts think about this and how they're using this?
It's quite varied. It's everything from, what do you mean? I don't use my show to make money, all the way up to, when can we start? And I always expected there was, whatever you do, there's going to be a group of people who object or who don't think it's a good idea. and we politely, respect their opinion, because those aren't our target market. Our target market are people, I would prefer people who get it and who are already making money with their shows, who just want to make more with less effort. Those are our favorite customers. But we are delighted to work with people who aren't making any money and are just having to make the decision of whether or not to stay in business or explain to their spouse why they should stay in business, which is not a very fun position to be in, but happens all the time.
Right.
So that's what we do, and I'm finding that I would say maybe 3/4 of the people I talk to really like the idea, and about 20-25% don't, which is good. I think I'm really happy with that, because but everybody has an opinion, and the way I approach it to people by saying I have a way where you can build and leverage on your relationships to make money, and everybody has an answer. It's not like they're not interested on either side, whether they like it or they don't like it. It's generating a lot of curiosity and intrigue, because we've refined it down to the essence is that here's a tremendous group of people. Everybody wants to be on the radio or on air for whatever reason. It's kind of a sexy thing, to be a guest on a radio show or a podcast host. There's all the emotional benefits that go with it. But once all that wears off and you're faced with the reality of running a show every week and the commitment of getting the guest every week and paying whatever expenses there are, and there's no money coming in, it kind of starts to go from the greatest thing to what am I doing this for? And that's where we come in, is to help the show guests. And we're not even talking about lots of money. Like, I had one talk show say to me, if I could make $300 a week, I would be delighted, because that's all I need to run my show. So we can help those people, and we can help people that need to make thousands of dollars a week. So it's everything in between. That's why this is so much fun.
Well, it sounds like it, and sounds like you're really doing is extending the guest 15 minutes of fame, to quote Andy Warhol. Everybody has their 15 minutes of fame, but with your system, it sounds like you can stretch it to maybe 30, 45, 7 days, something like that, And,
well, actually, to be honest with you, most of the podcast shows now, the radio shows can be 5, 10, 15 minutes long, but the podcast shows are either 30 minutes or 60 minutes, and we're actually extending that 30 minutes of fame into forever, because you can evergreen an interview, and as long as you keep placing it, you can use it 5 years from now. As a matter of fact, some of the digital assets that I use for interviews I have been on Google for 3 years. They just sit there. As a matter of fact, one of the things we do is we create a press release, and we send it out, and it's picked up now. It's by approximately 300 digital affiliate sites, anything from ABC, NBC, CBS, the Miami Herald, the Dallas Star, Los Angeles Times, trade journals, financial periodicals, and Google loves it, and Google picks it up. They'll pick up various different places that the press release is on, and it just stays on Google, and it becomes part of your authority building platform, because if somebody Googles your name, up is going to come this press release, which is like an article about you, saying that you've been interviewed on the radio, and then there's going to be a logo of a ABC, NBC, CBS, or Fox TV radio station, or maybe the logo of the Boston Globe or the Miami Herald or the Pittsburgh Gazette. That's real good authority and credibility building.
Well, it sounds like it, especially when people are Googling your name and, to check you out, I guess, before deciding to work with you, and finding lots of information on places that didn't originate from your website. So it's not like you're tooting your own horn, but there are other places out there that kind of tooting your horn for you. And I know that becomes really important in today's society, where everyone is looking at reviews to check somebody out or Googling them and seeing what's good and bad and ugly about them online. But if they have a whole front page full of various articles talking about, this process and that process and this bestseller and being on this radio show, that would be pretty impressive to me, I think, as I was looking somebody up.
It is, and most people think that in order to get a lot of publicity, you have to be on like 20, 30, 40, be interviewed 40, 50 times, right? With this system, it's good to be interviewed more than once, like 5 to 6 times, even 10 times would be nice. But then you could take those 6 or 10 radio interviews and repurpose them into like 50, 60, 70 different places. I didn't even talk about, taking the recording and just putting it on the actual interview. You can upload on Facebook. You can upload it on Twitter. You can upload it on YouTube and the other 50 or 60 social media platforms with a little statement and a picture of you as to you were interviewed on such and such a station and such a time. The topic of the interview is this, and there's a couple of key points you should listen to, and that gets people to listen. As a matter of fact, I did an interview about a month and a half ago, and the topic of the interview was how to get Donald Trump to communicate properly.
Good luck with that.
Everybody and his uncle was listening to what I had to say about that. But we're not going there. That's a whole different world. We don't have enough time to go there. But you can have a lot of, that's what I mean. You can take a fun topic and repurpose it, and people will be probably listening to what I had to say about Donald Trump a year or two from now, whether he wins or loses. So
right.
It's fun. This whole thing is fun. We've created actually a situation. It's more than a product suite. We've created a situation where the talk show host, to recap, builds a relationship with the guest naturally. And then the guest becomes friendly with the talk show host and trusts them. And then the talk show host recommends products and services that will repurpose that interview to get more business and more attention, more publicity, and spread his message far and wide. And it's done ethically. There's no arm twisting. The talk show host doesn't have to do anything than send out a couple emails, and all the guest has to do is pick and choose what they'd like and give us their input to customize it, and then we do our job.
Well, Joel, that sounds really wonderful, and I bet we have a lot of talk show hosts and podcast hosts listening to this interview, and they're chomping at the bit to find out how to get more information. So how can I get in contact with you and find out more and maybe sign up to be one of those hosts that are making money from their show?
We just built a nice platform called QuotedAuthorityMedia.com, and you can go there and you can schedule a telephone call with me, and it won't be a half hour or 45 minutes like this interview. In 5 minutes, I'll give you the basic information. I'll send you a registration page where all you have to do is register for free, and then that's how we begin. It's QuotedAuthorityMedia.com, or if you're really interested and you got to talk to me right away, my phone number, and my wife will probably kill me, but this is my business phone number, 407-656-2520, and I'm very available. I also have an email address, jhelfer, H-E-L, F as in Frank E-R, 217 at gmail.com, jhelfer, H-E-L-F-E-R, 217 at gmail.com. And those are the 3 ways to get a hold of me. And on our website, we have a couple of bonuses and a cheat sheet that'll help you on your way. But primarily, scheduling a phone call with me is the quickest and easiest way for a talk show host to get started.
All right, Joel. Well, we'll definitely put those methods of contact in the show notes. And I thank you, Joel, today for being my guest. You've provided some incredibly useful information for both talk show hosts and talk show guests that I am sure is going to make your phone ring, ring, ring just so much, because it's such a wonderful, wonderful opportunity. And I'd like to thank all of you out there who've listened to us today on Business Innovators Radio, and I wish you all a great day.
Thanks for listening to Business Innovators Radio. To hear all episodes featuring leading industry influencers and trendsetters, visit us online at businessinnovatorsradio.com today.